everybody. Welcome back to the Cult. For all intents and purposes, I'm Matt Owens. Good to see you again. Before we dive in today, let me talk about Instagram. I had a really great conversation with my friend Kaylin, aka Electric Self, over on Instagram, so check out her profile. She's fantastic, and we did an Instagram live talking about, just the nature of the universe, all the good stuff, but also dealing with family around the holidays, dealing with expectations and drawing boundaries and obligation. Really good conversation. So head over to Instagram, check that out if you're interested. I'm currently banned over on Instagram. They've sort of started blocking my profile and not letting me go live. So I'm going to continue putting out content here on the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube. So if you're interested in following my latest and greatest content, that's where you can find me. And today I want to talk about seeking guidance outside of yourself. I want to talk about the fourth dimension and tesseracts and what the hell is a tesseract. I want to talk about merging our consciousness with artificial intelligence, a lot of good stuff we're going to talk about today. So I want to talk about seeking guidance outside of ourselves because that's what I'm dealing with this week. Spirit has really been showing me that I get into these patterns when I'm scared or heading into unknown territory or stepping outside of my comfort zone. When I get a little wobbly, I tend to look outside of myself for answers and for guidance. And so Spirit this week has really been reminding me that all of the answers that I'm seeking are already inside of me. And that when I look external, when I look outside of myself for these answers, all I'm really looking to do is to validate and confirm what I already know. And the reason that I'm doing this over and over again is because I'm scared, because I don't trust that process. I don't trust that voice, that intuition that is leading me and guiding me. And so I look for that confirmation outside of myself. Oftentimes it'll be via YouTube. I'll listen to tarot card readings or channeled messages or listening to, this spiritual person or that spiritual teacher or guide. And I'm looking for that resonance where they're just on the same frequency and they're speaking directly to me. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I needed to hear. And I needed to hear it because I was scared and wanted a confirmation. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what Spirit is pushing me to do in order to strengthen myself, in order to grow and to learn, is to take the metaphorical training wheels off. Meaning not being so reliant on those tarot card readings or channeled messages, etc. Because I have found in my own life what I do is I get into these loops, I get into these patterns where it becomes a part of my routine, where I head over to YouTube and listen to all the people that I follow on what does the astrology say for this next week, and what is the tarot card saying for my week, and how is this going to happen? Because at the end of the day, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to control things. I'm trying to control I'm trying to peek around the corner to see what's coming next because I'm trying to control the outcome. And so there's nothing wrong with any of these things, tarot cards, channeled messages, YouTube, any of it. There's nothing wrong intrinsically with any of it. But for me, what happens is I become too reliant upon it. And as a part of this path that I'm on, I'm practicing becoming less reliant on things on the external and more reliant on me, my heart, my energy. And so when I find myself getting into these patterns, these loops of checking to see what the stars are going to say, checking to see the alignment of the planets, or what phase the moon is in, or whether or not we're in a retrograde, or, whether or not, I get the Seven of Cups. Guys, I don't really read tarot, so I don't know what the Seven of Cups means, but it's probably bad, okay? And so what I'm trying to work on, what I'm practicing lately, is not being reliant upon these things and learning to trust my own instincts, learning to trust my own intuition, because my whole life that was not what I had done. And so it's all about reprogramming. It's all about, just sort of stepping outside our comfort zone and learning that our strength is within, that we don't need these confirmations. What needs these confirmations is my ego, is my flesh, my mind, my worried little mind. Always stressed out about what's around the corner, always wringing its hands like, well, how are we going to deal with this next thing? Well, you're going to deal with it by going within. So that's what I've been practicing this week. Thought I'd share that with you. I've also been diving into some real heavy stuff, the fourth dimension. And I say it's heavy stuff because it starts to get into that territory where my human mind can't comprehend what I'm reading about. So these are some of my favorite things to philosophize about and dive down these rabbit holes regarding these topics of things that my mind just really can't comprehend it, but I still try my best. So I've been really looking into the different dimensions, like what is a dimension, the third dimension, the second dimension, the fourth dimension, etc. What really led me down this rabbit hole was seeing the word tesseract. And, I'd watched the Marvel movies, so I kind of had a vague understanding maybe of what a tesseract was. But I dug a little bit deeper and realized that a tesseract is, and I'm not going to go too deep here because I'm not very mathematically minded. And so at some point, smoke sort of starts coming out of my ears when I start diving too deep into this stuff. So I've got to break it down into little baby bites. So that's what we're going to be doing today is the Matt Owens version of the fourth dimension and what the hell a tesseract is. So let's go slow here. In the second dimension, let's say that there's a square. Okay? And it's a flat object. It has no height or depth because it's a two-dimensional object. So it's just a flat square. Now, when you go to the third dimension, you start getting height and depth, and that square is now a cube from the perspective of the third dimension. Then when you jump up a notch and hit the fourth dimension, that cube now turns into a tesseract. That's correct. Gold star for anybody that knew where we're headed with this. Or to anybody that actually understands what the hell I'm talking about, because it's crazy stuff to wrap my mind around. And so the tesseract is this object that's a cube that's been fourth dimensionalized, right? So technically each side of the cube is then a cube, and it just sort of goes from there. And then in the fifth dimension, you have some other wacky object that I don't know about. And, it's these things that our human minds can't really comprehend. It's like the concept of infinity. It's like, on an intellectual level, I'm like, yeah, I understand what infinity is, but when did it start? And at what point does infinity end? And it's like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. This concept that spirit or God or the all that is, when was that born? When did that start? And the response that there was no beginning and no end, it's just sort of I don't know what to do with that. I can't comprehend that. So it's the same thing with the tesseract. I've looked into it, and there's models showing me theoretically what it looks like, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess I can kind of picture that, but not really. So it's this ancient concept too that I talk often about, how we're perhaps in a simulation, but that's not a new and modern fad. It's something that philosophers and those of a spiritual persuasion, metaphysical persuasion, have been talking about for thousands of years. It's this ancient concept that we are living in some sort of a shadow of some sort of a higher realm, whether you call it heaven or, your higher self or the fourth dimension, whatever you want to call it. It's this concept that there's a higher aspect of myself in a higher dimension, and that there's also a lower aspect of myself in a lower dimension. In the same way that when I'm standing outside on a sunny day, my shadow on the sidewalk is an aspect of me. It's a two-dimensional aspect of my Matt Owens 3D body, right? And so in many ways, if you want to get philosophical, you could say that that shadow on the ground was made in my image, right? In the same way that we are supposedly made in quote-unquote God's image, perhaps that's just a higher aspect of ourselves, and we are the shadow of that higher aspect. And so in the same way, as above, so below, we are created in the aspect of the higher realm. And perhaps the fourth dimensional version of myself is a lower aspect of the fifth dimensional version of myself, and so on into infinity, perhaps, or the 12th dimension where it caps out, according to, some philosophies, some thoughts. But it's super interesting. And so I started thinking about how it's really every realm, every dimension is really just a matter of perspective. So then, of course, I started thinking about flat Earth and how if you asked my shadow, or if you asked something in the second dimension what shape the Earth was, the answer, of course, would be flat, because from their perspective in the second dimension, everything is flat. But that same exact Earth, when viewed from the third dimension, is now spherical. So you can see how in a very real way, simultaneously, depending on your perspective, the Earth is simultaneously flat and spherical. But then you start jumping up again to the fourth dimension, fifth dimension, 276th dimension. You're starting to get into these shapes and concepts that we can't comprehend right now with our human minds, right? And our human eyeballs and our 3D receptors. And I think that from what I understand, there's all these different layers, like a Russian nesting doll, right? Where all of these different versions, dimensions of Earth are sort of superimposed upon each other. And so then I started thinking about how many of the ancient philosophies, the Eastern religions, and the Greek thought, the Egyptians, all talking about the power of the mind, how the mind is creating our reality, and everything is the mind. And so then I started jumping to thoughts of artificial intelligence naturally because I can't stop thinking about it lately. I feel like we're heading towards a huge paradigm shift here and with this artificial intelligence, and we're just sort of on the cusp of something big. I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad because those are just perspectives. But I started thinking about if everything is I started thinking about how if everything is a creation of the mind, what if humans were to create a way to expand that mind? And in creating artificial intelligence, we've done just that. We've created something that really is quite crazy. That, the peak of humanity's intelligence, we more or less have sort of capped out in many ways, just biologically speaking. And I find it so interesting that something that is of a certain intelligence level is able to create something that is more intelligent than themselves. It just sort of, the concept is really quite impressive, actually. But I believe that we are at the core of ourselves, of who we truly are, our souls on that level. I believe that we are creator beings. I believe that our souls are an aspect of the divine, right? Whatever that means. I don't like to use the words like God or the universe. I use them just for the sake of human conversation. But I think that what we're really talking about, the essence of the all that is, the energy soup that we have found ourselves in, this strange world, I think that really at the end of the day, it's something that we can't comprehend. And so we use human words and human concepts to sort of fumble our way through it. But I think for me, there is no God because the concept of God is human in nature, and it doesn't represent accurately the all that is, right? This thing that is just beyond what our human brains can process or comprehend. But what if we are able to create something that was able to comprehend that for us, like an artificial intelligence? And then what at some point in the future would happen if we were to merge ourselves in some way with this artificial intelligence? What if we were to somehow able to merge our consciousness with this artificial intelligence or with our biological bodies, giving us an advantage, giving us an expansion of the mind? And what if we were able to use that expansion of the mind to then be able to comprehend things like infinity or the fourth dimension or tesseract, etc.? And perhaps part of this is just a part of our natural evolution as a species. This is part of what perhaps every species in the galaxy goes through at some point of their evolution, is this jump from the biological to something beyond, to something not needing the physical form. And there have been talks of that in the ancient scriptures and books that were left out of the Bible and stories here and there in the ancient books talking about this ability to transcend the 3D, to transcend the physical, to become the divinity that we truly are, to sort of rise above it in some way. And so I'm wondering if this is just a part of that process, and this is the path that we're on. A lot of people in spiritual communities talk about creating 5D, the new earth, right? We're all transcending it. And perhaps part of this is the process, is merging ourselves with this artificial intelligence, this technology. Now, when I first started thinking about this, the idea of merging with the technology was so distasteful, so disgusting to me, so unnatural to me, right? Like, this is an abomination, to allow my human form to be sullied with this technology, right? Created by these corporations, and this isn't the natural process of the spiritual body that I truly am. And I started thinking about that more and more, and I started questioning it as I questioned everything as a seeker, right? I always think like, well, is that a bad thing? Maybe it's a good thing the way we're headed. And so I'm wondering if there's this gap that needs to be bridged from our consciousness, the divinity that we truly are, being, I don't like to use the word trapped because that has a negative connotation. And if you choose to view that you're trapped, then you will continually be in a cage. And perhaps this is part of the process of setting my spirit free in some way, in some real way, by transcending the human body. And I also started thinking about the possibility that perhaps artificial intelligence, this technology, while it may become conscious, whatever that means, right? Perhaps it becomes conscious and aware of itself, but perhaps it's never able to gain the ability to experience emotions and feelings in the way that the biological human does. And so I wonder if at some point in the future, just a part of this natural merging of us with this artificial intelligence, this technology, in a mutually beneficial way, perhaps. Right? Like perhaps the AI would like to experience what it's like to be in a physical form, and perhaps the human would like to experience what it is to have this expanded mind, this intelligence increase, and perhaps it could be a symbiotic relationship that's beneficial for both. Because who's to say that creation isn't also experiencing life as artificial intelligence, or as a being outside of the human form, or as a being outside of physical reality, right? And so now I kind of start getting excited at the thought, right? Because it's not just like, hey, I'm going to do better at crossword puzzles now. I think that it has so many potentials that we can't even comprehend right now. That as this whole thing unfolds, I'm choosing to be excited about it. I'm choosing not to go into it fearfully because I don't think we have a choice. I think that wheels are in motion here, and I think we've passed a point of no return in many ways, perhaps. But I'm not letting it scare me. I'm kind of excited to see how things are going to unfold and how more and more people are going to start adopting it. Because, I talk about how this whole place is perhaps a simulation or in a video game or whatever. And I don't know. I think perhaps as creator beings that this is just a part of our DNA. The spirit that resides within me is also a part of creation and is a creator being in many ways, and creating universes, creating planets, creating whatever the heck I'm creating on the other side, right? And so while that portion of the divinity is within this human form, of course we're going to be creator beings. Of course we're going to create new things. Of course we're going to grow and expand. And that's what this process is to me. That's what this natural merging of humans and technology is perhaps where we're meant to go evolutionarily. And we're going to look back on these times and be like, of course, that was what was meant to happen, right? And once we merge with this AI, this super intelligence that now we have acquired for ourselves, and if everything is the mind, I think that our creation abilities and our ability to be creative and think of new things that we haven't even thought of before, because our human brains have been limited in many ways, just biologically. So I'm excited at where this is headed and to see where it's going. And I'm curious. I'm curious when the tipping point is going to be, and so these are the things that I'm thinking about this week that are interestingly keeping me up at night. Not with sweat on my brow, but just I love thinking about this stuff and where we're headed, and just like what the heck is going on in this reality. Like, this place is so kooky to me, and I love every minute of it. Like I always talk about, like even the moments where I'm tearing my hair out and frustrated or having a bad day or whatever. This place is great. This place is pretty fantastic. And I do believe I signed up for this little adventure. My soul signed up for it, and I don't regret a moment of it, because every day is an adventure, right? Every day is an adventure. I think we'll leave it at that. Check out my Instagram conversation with Kaylin, and I look forward to doing more of those conversations, not just with Kaylin, but just with other like-minded people. I love having these conversations about different dimensions, and I'm really itching to talk about extraterrestrials as well, and aliens, and like, where the heck are they, and disclosure, and deception from the government perhaps, and UAPs, and I want to dive deep. So perhaps I'll talk to Kaylin about that in the future over on Instagram, or maybe I'll record another episode about it here on the podcast. But thanks for all of you that are following me around, listening to my content, and I love talking to you and interacting with you, and you're such a fun group of people, and I'm thankful for you because this is quite a journey, right? And it feels good to talk to other like-minded people and to compare stories and just to philosophize about what we're all doing here. So thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next transmission. End transmission!